Most people assume that when an air conditioner breaks down, it just wore out. The unit got old, it gave up. That is the end of the story. But in my experience, and I have looked at more failed AC systems than I can count, age is rarely the whole story. And often it is not even the main one. The real culprits are almost always the same handful of problems, and they tend to live inside the same handful of unit types, brands, and situations. Once you know what they are, you can see the warning signs before a service call turns into a $4,000 replacement. I will be honest with you. A lot of what gets said about air conditioners is either marketing talk or well-meaning advice that just does not hold up in the field. The myth that expensive units are always more reliable, not always true. The idea that if you keep up with filter changes, everything else takes care of itself, also not the whole picture. There is more to it, and I want to walk you through the real list. The AC units and situations I have personally watched fail the most, and why. By the end of this video, you will know which unit types carry the most risk, what warning signs to look for before the system quits on you, and how to have an honest conversation with a technician without getting oversold. You will walk away with a real working picture of what actually fails and what actually holds up. If you want to go deeper on any of this, there is an ebook in the description below that covers the full breakdown, unit types, maintenance schedules, the questions to ask before you sign anything. It is all there when you are ready for it. Now let us get into the list. The first category on my list is oversized central AC units. This one surprises a lot of folks because the logic seems backwards. Bigger is better, right? More cooling power, faster results. But that is one of the most stubborn myths in the HVAC world, and it costs homeowners real money every year. When a unit is too large for the space it is cooling, it short cycles, it kicks on, cools the air down fast, and shuts off before it has had time to properly dehumidify the home. You end up with a house that feels cool but clammy. And the constant starting and stopping puts enormous strain on the compressor, which is the most expensive component in the entire system. The compressor is not designed to be cycled on and off dozens of times a day. It is designed for longer, steadier runs. I have seen oversized units fail in as little as 5 or 6 years because of this, while a properly sized unit in the same home could easily run 15 or more years without major trouble. A 3-ton unit dropped into a home that only needs 2 tons is not a safety cushion, it is a liability. Every time that oversized compressor kicks on, it draws a surge of current, heats up fast, and shuts down before the oil has fully circulated through the system. Do that 50 times a day for 5 summers, and you have worn out a component that costs anywhere from $800 to over $2,000 to replace. If a contractor tells you to go bigger just to be safe, push back and ask them to show you the load calculation. A proper sizing job takes measurements and math, not a gut feeling. The second type I see fail constantly is cheap builder-grade equipment. When a home is built by a developer and the HVAC system is chosen to hit a price point rather than serve the homeowner, you usually end up with entry-level equipment that looks fine on paper but is built to the absolute minimum standard. I am not going to name brands because the specific names change over time and vary by region, but you will recognize the pattern. These units have thinner coils, cheaper capacitors, and motors with very little tolerance for anything outside of ideal conditions. They work acceptably when everything goes right. The moment conditions get tough, a particularly hot summer, a stretch of high humidity, a minor refrigerant issue, they do not have the margin to handle it. I have watched these units struggle through their first decade and then fail right around year 10 or 11, just after most extended warranties have run out. If you are buying a newly built home, it is worth asking specifically what brand and model the HVAC system is, and looking up how that unit is rated by people who actually service them. Number 3 is single-stage units running in climates they were not designed for. A single-stage air conditioner is either all the way on or all the way off. There is no middle setting. In a mild climate with moderate summers, that works fine. But in a hot, humid climate where the system needs to run for long stretches just to keep up, that constant full-blast operation creates wear that adds up over time. I have seen single-stage units in southern climates fail noticeably faster than their two-stage or variable-speed counterparts doing the same job. The variable-speed units run at lower capacity for most of the day and only ramp up when they need to. That is easier on every component. In a place like Houston or Orlando, where an AC system might log 3,000 or more operating hours in a single year, the difference between a single stage and a variable speed unit in terms of long-term wear is not small. It can easily translate to 3 to 5 fewer years of reliable service life. If you live somewhere that gets genuinely brutal summers, a single-stage unit is a reasonable budget choice. But go in knowing it may not last as long as a more sophisticated system would in the same conditions. Fourth on my list, units with neglected air handler coils. The evaporator coil sits inside your air handler. It is the part that actually absorbs heat from the air in your home. Over time, dust, pet hair, and other particles coat that coil, even with regular filter changes. When the coil gets dirty enough, it loses its ability to transfer heat efficiently. The system runs longer and works harder to do the same job. The refrigerant pressure gets off, and eventually the compressor, again, that most expensive part, takes the hit. The thing is, most homeowners never see the evaporator coil. It is tucked away in the air handler, and a basic filter change does not clean it. A good technician will check and clean it during a proper annual service. If your service visits only consist of someone glancing at the outdoor unit for 10 minutes, you are not getting a real inspection. I would encourage you to ask specifically whether the evaporator coil is being checked. That question alone tells a technician that you are paying attention. Fifth, and this one is important, are window units and portable units used as primary cooling in a home that genuinely needs a central system. I want to be careful here because window units have their place. If you have a small room or a space you only use occasionally, they can be perfectly sensible. But I have watched people run 2 or 3 window units around the clock to cool an entire house, and the results are almost always the same: high electricity bills, inadequate dehumidification, and units that burn out from continuous heavy use within a few years. Window units are built for supplemental or occasional use in most cases. They are not built to carry the full cooling load of a home through a long summer. A 5,000 BTU window unit running continuously in 95-degree heat is being pushed well past what its motor and compressor were engineered to sustain day after day. If you are relying on them as your only source of cooling, they will fail faster and cost you more in electricity than you probably realize. The math rarely works in favor of that approach. Sixth, I want to talk about improperly installed mini-split systems. Mini-splits have become very popular in recent years, and when they are installed correctly, they can be excellent, efficient, quiet, and long-lasting. But the installation matters enormously. I have seen mini-splits fail within a few years because the refrigerant lines were not properly routed, The unit was mounted in a spot with poor airflow, or the condensate drain was not set up right, and moisture backed up into the system. Some folks buy mini splits through online retailers and hire whoever is cheapest to install them, and that combination tends to produce problems down the road. A good mini split installation is not complicated, but it requires care and experience. If you are considering one, ask the installer specifically about their experience with that brand and whether they will pressure test the refrigerant lines before startup. Those two questions will tell you a lot. Seventh on my list are older systems still running outdated refrigerant. For years, the most common refrigerant in residential AC systems was R22. It has been phased out of production, and the supply that remains is limited and expensive. If you have an older system that still uses R22 and it develops a refrigerant leak, the repair costs can be significant, sometimes high enough that replacing the unit entirely makes more financial sense. As of 2020, the EPA banned the production and import of R22 entirely, which means the only supply left is what was recovered and reclaimed from decommissioned systems. That scarcity has pushed the price per pound from around $10 a decade ago to anywhere between $50 and $150 today, depending on your market and the time of year. The trouble is that a lot of folks do not know what refrigerant their system uses until there is a problem. I would encourage you to look at the nameplate on your outdoor unit. It usually lists the refrigerant type. If it says R22 and your system is more than around 15 years old, you should be having an honest conversation with a technician about how much useful life is left and what a replacement might cost before you end up making that decision in the middle of July. If you want a side-by-side breakdown of refrigerant types, what questions to ask a technician, and a simple checklist to use before any service appointment, the guide in the description below covers all of that in one place. Eighth, and I see this one constantly, units with failed or failing capacitors that never got caught in time. The capacitor is a small, inexpensive component that helps the motors in your AC system start up and run. It wears out over time. When it starts to weaken, the motor has to work harder to start and run, which puts stress on the motor itself and on the compressor. A worn capacitor might cost $30 or $40 to replace. If it fails completely and takes the motor or compressor with it, you are looking at hundreds or potentially thousands of dollars. A good technician checks capacitor health during every annual service call, and that test takes about 2 minutes with a basic meter. If your annual service does not include a capacitor check, ask for it specifically. It is one of those small preventive steps that genuinely pays for itself. Ninth on my list is heat pump systems in climates that get genuinely severe winters. A heat pump is an excellent system in a mild climate. It is efficient, it handles both heating and cooling, and it can last a long time with proper maintenance. But heat pumps have a harder time in very cold winters. Below a certain outdoor temperature, roughly around freezing, though it varies by unit, most heat pumps become less efficient and have to rely on backup electric resistance heating. If the heat pump is running hard in cold weather and the defrost cycle is not working properly, ice can build up on the outdoor unit and cause serious damage. I have watched heat pumps in cold climate areas fail significantly faster than similar systems in milder regions. Manufacturers like Bosch and Mitsubishi have developed cold climate heat pump lines rated to operate efficiently down to -13 degrees Fahrenheit. And those units are a different conversation entirely. But a standard residential heat pump installed in a region that regularly sees temperatures in the single digits is fighting an uphill battle every January. If you live somewhere with hard winters and you are considering a heat pump, make sure you are choosing a model rated for cold climates and that your installer understands how to set up the defrost controls correctly. 10th, and I will end the list with this one because it is possibly the most preventable. Units that simply never get serviced. I have seen systems that lasted well into their second decade because the homeowner had a technician out every single year, kept the outdoor unit clear of debris, changed filters on schedule, and kept the area around the indoor unit clean and dry. And I have seen units fail in half that time because nobody looked at them from installation day until the day they stopped working. Air conditioners are not set and forget appliances. They have moving parts. They work in dusty and humid conditions, and they accumulate wear at a steady rate. A once-a-year service visit, ideally in the spring before the heavy season, is the single most effective thing most homeowners can do to extend the life of their system. It costs around $100 or so in most areas. What it prevents can cost 10 or 20 times that. Now, if you have been finding this useful, I want to invite you to join the Ask Big Jim community here on the channel. We answer real questions from folks like you every week, and the people who show up there get answers based on real-world experience, not whatever the industry wants you to hear. Subscribing is the easiest way to stay in the loop. Let me pull this all together for you. The units I see fail the most are not always old. They are oversized units that short-cycle themselves to death, cheap builder-grade equipment that has no margin for error, single-stage units running in climates that demand more, systems with dirty coils that nobody ever checked, window units asked to do a central systems job, mini splits that were installed carelessly, old R22 systems with limited repair options, units with worn capacitors that were never caught, heat pumps struggling through winters they were not designed for, and systems that simply never saw a technician until the day they quit. None of those failures are mysterious. They are all predictable, and most of them are either avoidable entirely or at least manageable if you catch the warning signs early. The plain action plan is this. This week, find your unit's nameplate and write down the brand, model, refrigerant type, and installation year. This month, schedule a spring service if you have not had one in the past year, and ask the technician specifically about the evaporator coil, the capacitor, and the refrigerant level. Before your next unit purchase, get a written load calculation from any contractor who quotes you, and do not let someone talk you into a bigger unit without showing their work. The guide in the description below walks through all of this step by step, the inspection checklist, the questions to ask, the things to watch for by season. It is worth having on hand before your next service call or purchase decision. There is no money in telling you that simple maintenance and the right-sized unit will carry you a long way. But that is the truth of it. And that is what I keep coming back to every time I look at a system that should have lasted longer than it did. Leave a comment below and tell me, what has your experience been with your AC system? Has it lasted the way you hoped, or did something catch you off guard? I read every one of them. Next time, I want to walk you through the specific questions to ask an HVAC contractor before you sign anything. The ones that separate the honest shops from the ones who are counting on you not knowing any better. If this video was useful to you, a simple subscription keeps Ask Big Jim in your feed, and I am grateful for every one of you who does. Take care of your home, and it will take care of you.